Namaste and greetings. I, Shweta Shankar, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI, #Web Policy Learning. Today marks the 8th day of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, an online national winter school program, a 2-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship. This training program is organized by IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center and would be chaired by Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting distinguished professor IMPRI. This program has an excellent panel of experts who will be sharing their expertise for the duration of this program. We are honored to have a distinguished panel of experts joining us for day 8, which includes Advocate Dr. Alberina Almeida, a lawyer and human rights activist based in Goa, visiting senior fellow at IMPRI as well. Ms. Seema Kulkarni, founding member of Society for Promoting Participative Ecosystem Management based in Pune, and Ms. Anjali Bawa, founder of YWLPPF Experts. The panel of conveners comprises of Dr. Arjun Kumar ji, Dr. Simi Mehta ji, Professor Gummadi Sridevi ji, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji. Proceeding further, I welcome all the participants to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for being interested and putting your time, energy, and efforts into fostering the development of young women leaders in public policy while helping us to bring together the practitioners and participants through this course for impactful policy research and action. We also have shared course outline and reading resources in your email for your kind perusal. Before we start today's session, I would like to remind the housekeeping announcements once again. That is, first, please join the meeting on time. There will be Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Now, without any further ado, let us start our program. I am delighted to call upon Vibhuti Patel ji to deliver opening chair remarks.
Thank you, Shweta, for these introductory remarks. And today we are on day 8 of the online National Winter School program of IMPRI. Thank you, Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Dr. Shalu Nigam, Ms. Priyanka, Ms. Shweta Shankar, who is now moderating the session, whole IMPRI team for putting this course together, and welcome Dr. Advocate Albertina Almeida, Professor Tulsi Jaikumar, and Ms. Anjali Bawa, and esteemed participants. Today, the focus is on inclusivity, and the 4 key principles underpin women's inclusion are equality before the law, economic empowerment, vibrant participation in decision-making, and equal educational opportunity. Now, gender bias, which is still alive and also works in all sectors of the economy and all spheres of our life, it is most significant barriers that hinders women's career enhancement, women's participation in decision-making at the community level, in the family, and in the larger political spectrum. Women often face discrimination, limited opportunities, and lack of support when it comes to advancing their career, and that's why women's inclusion is a key component for achieving equity. So despite progress in the recent years, we have seen that there are so many barriers which women are facing in workplace, education, and politics. And this is not only, it has given negative effect on women themselves, but also their families, communities, societies, and the nation state. Now, this whole course began with an understanding of how women's rights movement had fought for women's inclusion, equal opportunity, and equal participation in the developmental process. We also have gone through examining the political economy, the institutional barriers, and efforts by individual and collective efforts by women to bring the transformative change in the society. We have also focused on, in the previous section, we also focused on state effort, how the state took initiative in empowerment and development of women. We also got the global perspective of gender equality when Professor Roxana Marinescu spoke about the 4 phases of feminism. We also had a session on how to write the research article From Idea to Publication by Dr. Seema Mehta. Dr. Purnima Chauhan, she shared her experiences of being a successful bureaucrat and experienced veteran administrator at a subnational level. And also we had the session on young women, how they are leading with purpose and making a difference by Ms. Medavini Namjoshi from Imbuja Cements. Sangeeta Rege, director of Sehat, she shared her experiences in the health sector, how young women leaders are bringing changes in the way health sector has looked at women's question and even the medical college syllabus. We had a session on big data driven landscape and how to navigate the data deluge. That was by Professor Soumyadeep Chattopadhyay. Audrey de Mello's session was on championing the safeguards for young women in public policy, where she shared efforts of Majlis in bringing legal changes as well as the operational guidelines for women survivors of varied forms of violence, right from domestic violence, child sexual abuse, rape, and discrimination in the legal system. Ruqayya Joshi's session in the previous day was on the leadership lessons for young women, and Annausha Abraham, she also shared her experience of being in the corporate world and also in the women's movement, when she spoke about effectiveness of networking and importance of personal development for young women leaders. And we also had a very young resource person, Mr. Yash Agarwal, who shared his personal journey of rising in the career ladder of career and varied forms of experiments he made in his career, and how the young women leaders can also learn from his personal experiences. He also is a coach for the young aspirants in the corporate world. And now today we are going to focus on inclusivity, and we have a veteran legal expert. She's a fighter for women's rights. We also have a session on enabling public action by young women, whether individually or through judicial route or through grassroots movement. And also one session is about the entrepreneurial journey. Before this also, we had two resource persons who had spoken about women in the world of entrepreneurship. Over to IMPRI team.
Now it is my honor and privilege to invite Advocate Dr. Alberina Almeida for a session on advancing inclusivity in society led by women, challenges and strategy. Over to you.
Thank you, Shweta. It's my pleasure to interact with the participants of the Young Women Leaders Public Policy Fellowship. I think I'll begin with sharing my screen in terms of a presentation. Is this visible to everyone? Yes.
It's in working mode. Make it slideshow mode.
When it's in slideshow mode, the only problem is that I do not get a chance to see the rest of the people.
Because we are getting, I think in the other side also it is there. So there are two.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I can see this. But I have this problem that, okay, I'll minimize this, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we are talking about advancing inclusivity in society led by women, the challenges and the strategies. It is often quite a dilemma that women have faced over time, that when we are talking of inclusivity, the fact remains that women do not have just one identity as women. They also have other identities based on place of origin, or they're migrant or not migrant. They belong to different religious faiths, they profess different religious faiths, or they belong to different castes. So therefore their identities are determined both by the fact that they are women, and by the fact that they have whatever other multiple identities that they have. So therefore it's always quite a challenge, because sometimes it seems like their identity, the other identities that they have, conflict with the identity that they have as women. At other times it seems that it is necessary to factor the other identities, because together it can ensure inclusivity for women. So let me just go through a few thoughts that I have and would like to share with you, and we can have a more detailed discussion as we go along. Oh, sorry. So why are we talking of inclusivity? This is because, first of all, women experience governance and life differently from men. Different women experience governance and life differently from other women. And then the impacts are often disproportionate to women, and particularly to certain sections of women. So we cannot but talk about inclusivity, because otherwise, if we assume that the reference point is the male, then every policy will be determined keeping the reference point as the male. So therefore, it's important to understand that we cannot keep that, because there is a fact that due to both biological factors as well as social constructions, there is a different experience that women have of governance and of life than men, and therefore since the experience is different, the problematic experiences that they have need different kinds of methods of redressal. And therefore, it's important to understand what are the different experiences, how it is different, and then also how impacts are different also, because of if you have the same thing applying to everybody, and inclusivity is not taken into account, the difference is not recognized, then how the impacts are disproportionate, and therefore what corrective measures need to be taken, considering that you cannot have same approach when the realities are different. So and to have inclusive societies means to respect diversity, equality of opportunity, to ensure that societies are stable, safe, just, and tolerant. We know that when there is lack of tolerance, and there is no peace, and then there's no peace, you cannot have peace without justice. So there is no peace, there is lack of tolerance. And then we need, of course, as Dr. Vibhuti Patel also just earlier pointed out, that it needs participation of all people, and including the disadvantaged and vulnerable groups and persons, and that of course includes women. So we need this towards inclusive societies. And the consequences of failures of social integration are social fragmentation, widening disparities. This is something that was stated in a review of further implementation of the World Summit for Social Development, that there is social fragmentation, widening disparities and inequalities, strains on individuals, families, communities, and institutions. As a result of the rapid pace of social change, economic transformation, migration, and major dislocations of population, particularly in areas of armed conflict. So now we will look at, when we're talking of equality before law, and the need, the way in which the concept of equality has been set out in the Constitution of India. There is a very clear reference to inclusivity, because they say that we're not just talking of bland equality. You can't say, if the scale is tipped against, you, you cannot say, okay, let us put the same measures of weights in both the sides of the scale, in both the scales, because you will have the same tilt again. So therefore, we don't have that kind of namesake equality where you say, okay, let us have the same measure for both. Because if you have the same measure for both, the tilt is going to stay the same. So therefore, we need to have what is envisaged as and what is spoken of as substantive equality. Now, this is defined in Articles 14, 15, and 16 of the Constitution, where Article 14, which is the primary article relating to equality, speaks of equality before law and equal protection of laws. So equality before law means that everyone is equal, and the courts or the dispensers of justice or the enforcers of laws cannot treat somebody differently because they are women, or because they are poor women, or because they are women from the suppressed castes. So this is the one mandate of equality in the Constitution. The other mandate, so everyone has to be included in the reach of fundamental rights of the Constitution. Now, the other aspect is equal protection of laws. Now, when we say equal protection of laws, I'll just give you an example of a quote by Anatole France, which said that the law in its majestic equality um, forbids the rich and the poor to sleep under bridges, to steal loaves of bread. Okay. Now here is a and to beg on the streets. So now here is a thing that seemingly is equal, but as you can see, the rich don't require to sleep under bridges, and the poor are sleeping under bridges because they don't have homes. So this by no standard, if you look at it plainly as with a bland equality approach, you will say, okay, this law is equal because it's the same. It doesn't differentiate against anybody. It's the same for the rich woman, same for the poor woman, same for men, same for women. But in effect, it distinguishes because, as I said at the outset, women experience governance and life differently. So for example, because of both biological and historical factors. Now, the point is that as far as when it comes to women are often vulnerable to sexual violence. So what happens is, first of all, they are propelled to live under bridges because they don't have homes, so they're already vulnerable. Now the law is forbidding them to live under the bridges. Now where will they go? They will have to hide somewhere where they are more vulnerable because they have to hide, though they don't have homes. So then this would be a clear case where the context of women is not considered. Women are not included in imagining the law. So there is no inclusivity. So, or the poor women, I would say, are not included. The poor people are not included. So here is a question where the Constitution very clearly says, envisages affirmative action. So it says that you can have special measures when it comes to employment of those of people who are discriminated on the basis of sex, caste, place of origin, religion, etc. So you can have affirmative action. That's called affirmative action, which means it's also called positive discrimination. It's a discrimination to bring women on par with the other with men, and to bring people who are discriminated against on the basis of sex on par with the others. So therefore we have a constitutional foundation to ensure that there is a inclusive consideration of women, inclusive consideration of those that are disadvantaged, because women, as I said, also have multiple identities. And there are very, very clear provisions in the Constitution that first recognize that everybody is not equal in the eyes of law, and everybody is not equal on the ground, and therefore this ground reality has to be factored in terms of treatment of the problem, and therefore you have positive discrimination or affirmative action. It's something like if the pendulum were in the middle, it was one thing, but if the pendulum has swung to one side, it has to swing to the other side before it comes in the middle. So therefore, this principle of substantive equality, what does it what does it lead up to? It suggests that you cannot treat equals unequally. That means if two women from the same caste, class, everything, if you can't now treat this woman differently from another, from the, let's say, or two men, yes, you cannot treat equals unequally. Like if you have two women, as I said, from the same, all the very many multiple identities are also the same. Now you can't treat them unequally. You have to have the same measures. You have to otherwise show why you're treating them unequally. There has to be a very clear nexus between what you're trying to do, what you're doing in terms of treating them unequally, and the basis for which you're treating them unequally. Meaning, if you're saying, okay, this person has not had access, belongs to a section of society that has not had access to education, then you have to state that. And therefore, you're saying you are going to have reservations in education. But if women have historically not had access, let's say, to education, then you say that women have historically not had, therefore you're having it. But if you say that, I just think that these people need to, we just think as those in government that these people should have some special benefits because, and the unsaid part that there are a primary vote bank or whatever, then that doesn't make sense. So there has to be a rationale if you want to treat equals, whoever you call equals unequally, because you have to show that they're not equals and therefore you're treating them unequally. Similarly, we cannot treat unequals equally, and any decisions cannot be arbitrary. Now, when we say unequals equally, I will give you an example also of, or in due course, of how these things play out in real life. Yeah. So therefore, now to create these inclusive environments, we need to make sure that we use inclusive language. We avoid stereotypes and assumptions. We acknowledge and appreciate others' contributions, listen to each other actively and empathetically, and enable them to express their thoughts and opinions respectfully. Very many times, what invariably happens is that our language is not inclusive. For instance, if we are looking at, let's say, let's say a tract of land where you see all shrubbery. Now, if you're not understanding that women may be taking cattle to graze on that land, you will say that land is, barren land. Because from a technocratic point of view, which is a male technocratic point of view, that land is barren land. Oh, it's like rocky. It has got all shrubs on it. It just has some shrubs on it. So it is barren land, you see. But if you're being inclusive, you will consider what uses does that land put to, and look at and reconsider whether you will call it barren land in the first place. Similarly, you will avoid stereotypes and assumptions. You will avoid stereotypes that, women, they're too preoccupied with their homes, and therefore they don't really pay attention to work. These are the kinds of stereotypes there are, and therefore women are not recruited, for example, because there are these stereotypes and assumptions about women. Similarly, we need to, in this process, in order to make it inclusive, we need to acknowledge and appreciate others' contributions and listen to each other actively and empathetically. So now when it comes to including women in the workforce, it is not just about saying, okay, I shall recruit more women, telling people, okay, you need to recruit women. You are only recruiting men in the workforce. You need to recruit women as well. The point is that for, it's not just about recruitment, it's about women also coming forward and joining the labor market. Now, if there are, gender based disadvantages, then, for example, if let's say uh, women do not have, like, wherever they're staying, that location, there's, let's say, there is no proper road, let's say, and so they find it difficult to, or the road is not, it's not a safe space, then they will find it difficult to access, let's say, a factory which is there. They will not apply for working in that factory because there is a problem of safety. So then that would be a gender based disadvantage to enable free choice of women to join the labor market. Or if for example, if you had a system where there were night shifts and everybody has to join the night shifts, then not having night shifts, saying that there won't be night shifts for women will only mean that women will not get recruited, because they'll say, oh, they won't be able to join the night shifts. So then how do you address it? So the other way that people have resolved is to say that when it comes to women, there should be a restroom, and there should be, or they should also be able to transport them back by private transport at at night for the night shift. So then these would address the gender based disadvantages, and there can be a kind of a mandate that they have to have this proportion of a particular proportion of men and women in any unit. So then these would take care of ensuring that women are included in the workforce, that women are able to will come forward to join the labor market, because they want to join, but they have limitations in joining it because of the gender-based disadvantages. Similarly, when it comes to what would be called what are now called ecosystem services, that is affordable crashes, career counseling, handholding, lodging, transportation, this can help further unlock the gender-based disadvantages. So therefore, if they, including doesn't mean just saying you shall recruit men and women, because even if women are recruited, let's say, it could be that they will end up dropping out of the job because they cannot cope with it, because they have issues of transportation, they have issues of where shall they keep their child. The child is ending up getting neglected. They have to keep begging this one person or the other, or they just keep the child locked up in the house and have to come to work, and they then loaded with a tremendous sense of guilt. So all this eventually leads them to leave their job. So that is why all these services, it's important to, if we are talking of inclusivity, we have to consider the state has to consider all these aspects. And if we are in places or positions where we have the possibility of incorporating all this, then we have to consider this as well in terms of how we will make it inclusive. So then there's also the other aspects. One is the proactive requirements, for women. The other is redressing some negative problems which hamper inclusivity. In fact, the Supreme Court of India was recognized this. For example, they recognized that that if women are sexually harassed at the workplace, it means that their right to work is affected. They are unable to go to work, and because they are being sexually harassed at the workplace, so they hesitate to go to work. If it creates a general uh, impression that women are, being sexually harassed, then many other people will not allow their women folk to go to work. So it affects their right to work. It affects the inclusivity of women in the workforce. So therefore, at every workplace, it has to be ensured, we do have a law, but it also has to be ensured that that law is enforced. So there needs to be effective redressal of issues of sexual harassment at the workplace to ensure that women are included in the workforce. Now, I was earlier talking to you about treatment of unequals, equals that unequals cannot be treated equally. Here I will give you an example of a case that that was filed here by the women's group by Latasad many years ago. The thing is that they had put out an advertisement for police sub-inspectors and they had put bracket men. Now, as you know, you cannot have reservation for men. You can have reservation for women. So there was already a problem, but by the time we got to know of it and we could challenge it, those people had already got appointment letters. So then the question was, how does one address it for the future, if not anything else, or adjust it within the recruitment? So therefore, there was a lot of thought given to this, and then the state agreed that yes, we have to have, in fact, seats reserved for women, PSI women, one. Secondly, that in the general ones, if we want to make sure that everyone can apply, then you cannot have the same criteria. For example, when it comes to the chest size, etc., you cannot have the same size because biologically there are different sizes. So when it comes to men and women, and therefore if you by the very setting out of those particular the sizes, you will exclude women. So inclusivity is not just of what we see on the face of it, women should be included, and there's some expression that says women should be included. But it's also in this detail, the devil lies in the detail. So it's also in these details that we need to see how, without stating it, women are excluded, can be excluded. Not just where you had like PSI men, then women were clearly excluded. But if you had PSI general and you have these measurements that the applicant has to meet, then the whole thing is women will get excluded. So that is how they agreed that they will have different measurements when it comes to women and different measurements when it comes to men. This is how it was worked out, so as to ensure that women do not subtly get excluded. So there are various ways in which women's groups, concerned citizens have tried to address this problem. Also, when it comes to inclusion, what happens is that women generally approach somebody or the other, and we have to make sure that we take on board all these the concerns that women express, and the women may be from different sections of society. So also the state should be accessible for people from different sections of society to get to be able to to be accessible to women. There should be a space that makes women feel comfortable in approaching for justice in these matters. So uh, inclusivity means all these things. For example, when it comes to in any sphere, and here the example I gave you was inclusion of women in the workforce. Now this may also apply when it comes to participation in decision making. Here I could quickly give you an example of the formulation of the Goa Children's the enactment of the Goa Children's Act. So now here was a question of, there are so many various sections of children, and the kinds of articulations that come about their rights being violated may be very, very different, because children from a particular from disadvantaged sections of society may come up with issues like for example lack of access to education. They don't have a birth certificate, so they cannot be their birth cannot be registered. Now all these things we will not be able to imagine some of those things if we do not belong to that same section of society. So and if we have not been exposed. But if you have a process that enables people from different sections of society to participate in the formulation of the law, to participate in responding to a drafted law, then that can ensure that the concerns of various sections of society are included. That is what we tried to do when the civil society was involved in formulate drafting in the draft of the Goa Children's Act. But of course, there are always limitations, and it's not as if everything that the society drafts is taken into account by the powers that be. So that's another aspect that we need to find ways to hold. Ensuring participation doesn't mean only enlisting people's views, but it also means giving, if you're rejecting, there has to be some kind of a reasoned basis for rejecting suggestions or for not considering certain suggestions. So these, or for, reformulating those suggestions in a way that was not intended by those who gave the inputs. So that is an aspect of which requires consideration to ensure full inclusion in participation processes, is what I think when I look back now at the formulation of the Goa Children's Act. A lot was done because of the enabling, it was also decentralized in the sense that there were taluka level meetings. Then there were meetings of children, because otherwise it is adults that speak for the children. So there were meetings of children. In the taluka level meetings, there was a combination of the integrated child development service officer, child development project officer, with an NGO from the or civil society organization at the taluka level. And depending on the reach of that particular NGO, there was a wide variety of people that may have been involved at the taluka levels, which resulted in all those rich inputs and that comprehensive law. There was also an involvement of the stakeholders. That means, and the functionaries under or the proposed functionary under the law, to make sure that, it's a viable and a feasible propositions that are being put up in the law. So therefore, this way, one can ensure, with the representation of different groups, one can ensure the best possible results in policy making, for example. Uh, uh, Yeah, so at our own levels, we can make sure that people are treated equally and that decisions are made collaboratively. They're not decisions that we think from the top of our head and thrust them down other people, but make sure that everyone is collaboratively involved. And here, by collaboratively, I don't mean only people from our similar backgrounds to us, but people from different, especially with special attention to ensure that the voices of those who are marginalized and minoritized are heard, and not just included again as token, because that also tends to happen. That, for example, when the Goa State Commission for Women Act, I'm giving you examples from Goa because I'm based here. So when that act was being that was being drafted, so they constituted one committee, and then they had a representative in the committee from the ruling party's women's wing, but in the garb of another sort of NGO. And there was a representative from the women's autonomous women's groups as well. But there was a tendency to say, okay, we've included women with this whole thrust being of the dominant section. So therefore, simply also tokenly including a women's group or tokenly including certain sections is not enough. We have to make sure that what they are articulating is listened to, not simply okay, we give you a chance, you do a buck, we will do whatever we like. So it is important to listen to what exactly they're saying, where are they coming from, why they're saying what they're saying, to take this into account. So As I said, yes, of course, I've been talking of women, but when I talk of women, I also think we need to specify gender minorities to collaborate more in the decision, because this is one of the most disadvantaged sections today. Because today, at least it's a little bit, there is a recognition that there is a something called gender minorities, which was not there earlier. But still, the tendency is to say, oh, that's one stray other or whatever, and to disregard the contentions made by the gender minorities. So we have to consciously make efforts to ensure that women and gender minorities are enabled to collaborate more in the decision-making processes that shape society. Um, Same way when it comes to planning, in committing the necessary finances and expertise, there also gender inclusivity counts, because if you have no budget for gender responsive budgeting, for example, then if you don't have a budget, a gender budget, then there will be no inclusivity. Now, there are policies that require that there should be the gender budgets, but it's a question of what gets, we now are at the next level where what gets included in the gender budget. So if you have to provide umbrellas or raincoats, if you're being wanting to be inclusive, that is, umbrellas and raincoats need to be provided for everyone. So if you start saying that because it's provided to girl children, for example, it is about a gender budget, then there is a serious problem. We have to look at what really needs to get included in gender budgeting, not to simply to say, oh, we've made a budget and this budget is going for women. Now, for example, for let's say uh, for certain for a tubectomy, let's say, if a budget is allowed, obviously that budget is going for women. But the point is that it's obvious that that is the amount that will go for women. But the point is, what is the gender specificity of it, and how you're making sure that women are included in the planning, and how are you going beyond the existing budgeting systems that did not take into account gender specific concerns, and in order to redress them. This is important, because again, the tendency is to, when we say gender inclusive, okay, include women, you have some committees, include women in them. We realize now that it's not, it helps because it gives some visibility, and it drives home the point that women can be involved in decision making and have the capacity to take decisions. But it's a very little a small measure in relation to what is required in terms of really making it gender inclusive. Here again, access to services and resources, like if women do not, must have access to be able to be included. Women must have access to water. If they don't have access to water, everyone has had to have access to water, no doubt. But if there is no access to water, it is women who suffer the most, because historically it is women who have been doing the work of fetching water. I don't say it's their work alone, but it so happens that historically they have been doing. So if there is no water, it is the women's work day that is lengthened. So also, if there are development projects that result in displacement, in pollution of water, it is the women's work day that will be lengthened. So access to resources must be guaranteed for women at any cost, so that through or in the name of development projects, their work day is not lengthened, their health is not compromised, their work day is not lengthened, not merely in terms of fetching water, but in terms of being a caregivers. Because if the waters are polluted, sometimes there are health issues. Then again, it's historically women have been caregivers. So therefore, it is their work day that gets lengthened. So all this has to be taken into account. Similarly, access to credit. So for example, if there is if there are schemes that provide credit, but they say you have to give guarantee of land which stands in your name. Now, even if the land is not standing in the name in the survey records, then they will not have access to credit. So then if that is the case, then it makes it makes access to schemes redundant. So the conditions in the schemes must consider the realities that even in a place where the property, even if it's in the name of the husband, it is deemed to be of the wife, like in Goa. The point is it's standing in the name of the male. So then when they're considering it, they will look at that survey record and see the male name, and they will not give her credit. So then to make it inclusive, one has to take into account these kinds of issues that are there: access to technology, naming toponyms. And here I give you the example of the barren land example that I gave you. So for example, uh, there was a proposal to set up a golf course on an entire plateau, and it was a rocky area, as I said, with shrubs. And the government said, a letter was written to the government asking, can you tell us whether you have done an environment impact assessment? So they said, oh, there's no need for environment impact assessment because it's barren land. So there's no need of any audit or anything because it's barren land. So the thing is that, so there is a problem with the naming, because the naming has been done in a male technocratic way. Similarly, when it comes to sand dunes, when all these things have implications, because with that male technocratic way, they think that a sand dune, if a sand dune prevents erosion, what if a sand dune is a little height, and they think, oh, if you put up a structure like that, it will prevent erosion, because it will be of it'll be not only the height of sand dune, but it'll be higher. But what they don't understand is that the sand dune vegetation and its capacity to absorb and sustain with the vegetation to resist the erosion. So they do not take these aspects into account, because they're not engaging with it this way. They're engaging with it in that macro male way. Or for example, if they're talking of a hillside, and that may be land that may belong to somebody else. But traditionally, let's say the tribals have been accessing that land. Now, in this case, what happens is that if they have been accessing that hill for, let's say, traditional medicines, herbs. Now, if you call that just a hill, and don't recognize this use that the tribal women, the traditional women mendicants are putting that to, then you will name it a hill and you will stop it at that, and she will not have access to the resource that has been the source of her livelihood traditionally, her livelihood, the livelihood of her of the ancestors from those tribal women traditionally. So it's a question of even naming makes a difference. So we have to realize that very often we say, what's in a name? Let somebody name. Nowadays they're naming places differently. But there are consequences of that renaming. So we have to be mindful of that, and we have to be mindful that this renaming will not take into account that this renaming denies agency to women who would like to or the renaming or not, or the naming itself. It denies agency to the women who would have named it differently because of the uses that particular resource is put to. So hence it's important to consider all this. Now I'm talking of inclusive laws. Now, one is, you have laws where there are certain provisions included about women. Now, many people will say, why do you have to have protection of women from Domestic Violence Act? It's an inclusive law so that people will live free from violence. And since by and large it is women who have faced domestic violence, it's women who are facing sexual harassment of women, sexual harassment at the workplace. You need special laws to address the specific problems so that women get included. Women are included in the family, in the decision making in the family. women are included in the decision making at the workplace. So there is, to have that inclusivity, it is important to have sometimes gender specific laws. Gender specific laws, not gender specific to the advantaged section of society, but specific to the disadvantaged section of society, which includes women. Therefore, we talk of inclusive laws. And then there is the whole question of taking, sorry, also taking plural realities into account. Here we come to the aspect that when we're talking of um, designing laws, designing policies, we have to realize that there are plural systems at work. For example, when women face a problem in the family, they may either go to the court, they may also go to the Jamaat, they may also go to some Baba, they may also go to the priest, or they may go to like a tribal, they have this like tribal committees, so they could be going to these places. So the point is that we should not design a system that totally disregards these systems, so long as they are gender sensitive. We are not saying that you should have kap panchayats, the women, people have to go to kap panchayats as well. So we're not saying that, but we're saying that we have to recognize that there are different ways in which women may want to redress the problems, and they should be able to redress it in a way that it does not prejudice their rights. So here I will end for now, and we can and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for generously sharing your valuable time with us. Your insights were not only inspiring, but also incredibly valuable for our growth and development in this particular field. Um, Before moving on, I would like to uh, invite Professor Vibhuti ma'am for her remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Shweta. I think after such a exhaustive and erudite presentation by Dr. Albertina, not much is to be said. I think she is very, with a lot of examples at a ground level, she has shown that gender inclusive policy, how it involves creation of ecosystem through structures and systems and laws and directives for elimination of discrimination and promoting women's empowerment and safety, improving the access to healthcare, education, job opportunities, and also while dealing with the question of harmful practices and enacting legal and policy reforms, promoting equal representation in decision-making bodies, and enhancing the actual reality, the data through data monitoring are very, very important. She rightly said that unequal cannot be treated equally. And gender inclusion is a concept that transcends mere equality and also ensures that all services, opportunities, establishments are open to all people, and male and female stereotypes do not define societal roles and expectations, and how women's movement at a ground level had to collectively make efforts to challenge this kind of gender stereotypes and also the male domination and male dominant ideology prevailing in the policy making arena. Thank you.
Then if it's okay, in the interest of time, we can move on with the next session and we can have Q&A session at the end. We'll move on with the next session. Now I am delighted to call upon Ms. Seema Kulkarni, who will enlighten us on the crucial topic, young women leaders and climate change action. We welcome you, ma'am, and over to you.
Thank you. Shweta, I would like to share my screen. Do I have the...
Yes.
Yes.
I think you can share. Yes.
Are you able to see my
Yes.
screen?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, thank you very much, and good afternoon, good evening to all who are here. I hope I'm audible. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thanks. It's also nice to see Professor Vibhuti here and Albertina, who I could listen to. So thank you very much. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to more really questions. But let me at least very briefly lay out the topic for you. So this is actually about gender and climate change. But more specifically, I think how both it impacts the young, but also how do we really want to see the young in action. So I'm going to briefly sort of speak about some of the key issues, and then probably we can talk about the possible actions more in the Q&A. So I think many of you who are here probably are quite familiar with the topic in terms of what is climate change. But just to quickly refresh our minds and then to see it in the context of gender, uh, we can refer back to the IPCC report, which says, it's basically a rapid release of carbon dioxide in the environment. And the IPCC report also says that if we have to save the planet, then by 2030, we have to halve the release of carbon dioxide. And by 2050, it has to come to zero. If we are unable to achieve these goals, there are going to be a wide variety of changes that we are going to see. Glacier melting will increase rapidly, and of course, global temperature rises, which will be so high that they would be difficult to control. I think these are the key things that the IPCC report says. And of course, I think we all know that in the post-industrial revolution, the rise in the temperature has been 1 degree globally and also in India. And we have seen numerous impacts in terms of the variations in climate, whether they are storms, floods, erratic rains, droughts, rise in temperature. And in the Indian context, of course, that has impacted the poor very, very inequitably. So these are really the key contributors. One could see, it is human intervention largely uh, through the kind of policies and programs that we have witnessed that are largely responsible for the changes that we are seeing in the climate. So whether it's the construction industry, whether it is, other polluting industries, traffic, but also agriculture, which is contributing significantly to climate change. So let's briefly see how agriculture both is impacted but is also contributing to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. I will focus my presentation on agriculture because that's the area that I'm most familiar with. But if we look at some of the data points, what we see is that, of course, the greenhouse gas emissions are on the increase. And India is not far behind. In fact, after USA and China, it is India, which is accounting for almost 7% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Across sectors, of course, there are many sectors that are contributing much larger percentages, but agriculture also accounts for about 18% of the greenhouse gas emissions. And this is largely because of the model that we have been following in agriculture, which is chemical intensive farming, high yielding varieties, genetic modification that we are seeing, which are significantly contributing to the GLGs and, of course, also climate change in the broader sense. So, on the one hand, while agriculture is contributing, it is also severely impacted by climate change. And I think that also should be a significant worry for all of us. One of the things that this map, and there was a study done in 2013 globally, which shows that farmer suicides, uh, can be attributed to global warming. And in India, this was the map that clearly shows the hotspots of farmer suicides, and global warming has contributed significantly. So we are seeing a wide range of impacts: droughts, floods, um, you know, climate variations, erratic events, unexpected events are sort of, very visible across the globe. And of course, in India, we have these hotspots that we are seeing in terms of farmer suicides, but also in terms of distress in migration. Uh, Now, what are the kind of impacts that we are seeing on women and young girls? I think, of course, there are a wide range of impacts that could be broadly categorized under social, economic, health impacts, and multiple other dimensions that are, rarely spoken of or studied. One of the things that I think we really need to speak of is the increase in the unpaid work. I think Albertina also was speaking about the workforce participation of women, but we're clearly seeing that whether it is droughts, floods, or the uncertain supply of food, because food insecurity is also linked to the shift in paradigm in agriculture, which in turn has certainly been affected because of climate events. So we are seeing as a result of this, for basic survival and subsistence, women's work has increased. In the rural context, this has meant, despite all our flagship programs of, reaching water to every household, so Har Ghar Jal Nal Se, all of these are really great programs, but the uncertainty of the ecosystem changes as a result of certain kinds of policies, but also because of the kind of events that we are seeing, have put women on, a lot of women are taking a lot of burden in terms of the unpaid work. And this is not only women as a monolithic category, but women particularly across diverse social groups, particularly among the socially disadvantaged sections, but young girls who have to sort of leave school or drop their education because fuel, fodder, water have to be fetched. So we are really going back, several years ago when all of this work was, being done by women, but we are kind of seeing it in a new form today because of the kind of changes that we are witnessing. Then, of course, there are wide-ranging health impacts that we see as a result of both the increased burden, but also because of the rise in temperature. For example, we work, of course, my examples will come from Maharashtra, where we're working with women farmers, where we had a very engaging 2-day event just to understand the impacts of climate change on women. And some of the strong uh, sharings that were done by women were linked with both drought, of course, but also the kind of crops that are grown. And as a result of that, the kind of health impacts that women are facing. So, for example, the sudden growth of cotton, for example, cotton standing tall and rashes have been observed, or simply the heat already sort of impacts their opportunities for work available, because as it is, the lean season is a difficult season for rural people, particularly women who are engaged in agriculture. But it is this season which is now really increasing in its duration. So what could be 1 or 2 months has now become 3 or 4 months, because the temperature rise actually means that people are not able to get out to work. So this also has a lot of economic impacts, but also, of course, severe damage to the health. So there are a number of health impacts that have been documented. Uh, on reproductive health, because the burden has increased of just fetching water, walking long distances. And these are impacts which are seen not just on the older women, but also younger girls who are now, I mean, this is a critical age, and health should be a matter of concern. But with lack of food and basic amenities, there is morbidity that has been observed in young girls as well. And of course, loss of childhoods. There's a huge social impact where simply because of the kind of work burden and the changes that are witnessed. School dropout rates have also increased, and this has been observed in drought-prone areas across the country, but has certainly been aggravated because of climate events. Distress migration, and I think climate migration is something which is discussed, and it's a very central discourse to climate change these days. But I think migration has always existed, but the aggravation of this migration is something that we should certainly be concerned about. So, what we're witnessing is that both ways the impacts are fairly sort of unequal on women. One is the fact that because of male out migration, the burden of actually managing the families rests on women who are left behind at home. But in cases of, for example, whether it is sugarcane harvesting or those working on brick kilns, coal mines, it is the entire families that migrate under really very, very distressful conditions. So they are migrating with little children, infants, for long durations of 6 or 7 months, with serious impacts on both their health, but also on their social lives. I'm just going to show you quickly a 2-minute video on, just let me know if you are able to hear it, although it is in Marathi.
फक्त ना 8-9 वर्ष झाले लग्न झालेले. नंतर मुले झाले 2. ते दुष्काळ पडल्यामुळं मग आत्महत्या केली त्यांनी. 3-4 वर्ष पाऊसच नव्हता सलग. मग काही रानात 3 वर्ष पिकलंच नाही. वाहन घेतलं नाही, ती वाहन बी नाही, कर्ज ही माग बँकेचं लोन ही. मग ते काय फेडणं झालं नाही. थोडी शेती 2-3 एकर. मग काय होतंय, खायला तरी भागतंय का तेवढं. मग आत्महत्या केली त्यांनी पण. त्रास झाला पण 2-3 महिने काय कळतच नव्हतं. असं काहीतरी झालंय कुठं, कशाचा धक्का बसला असं होत होतं. काय समजतच नव्हतं काय डोळ्यात. मग सासरे आहेत, मग त्यांना थोडं समजून सांगून हे करून आपण असं करू तसं करू. लहान मुलं आहेत, मग त्यांच्या आजारावर सासरे आहेत, त्यांना समजून सांगितलं जरा डोक्यात प्रकाश बी पडतोय ना. काय बी अडचणी आतापासून पाऊस नव्हता लागला, ती सरळ सोयाबीनचं गेलं पीक त्याच्यात. ही साऱ्या सोयाबीन उगवून आल्या डबल. काय पाऊस साथ देत नाही, करायला घातली शेती तर घातलं शेतात तर ती बी निघत नाही त्याच्यात. कोणतंच नाही म्हणले, खाऊन बी देत नाही, खावी नाही, बसावी नाही. ह्याच्याकून त्याच्याकून बी भरण आण खतान पेर आलं रानात दिली पावसानं साथ दी, त्याचं महागारी नसतं राहिलं तसंच कर्ज. असं होतंय ना. भेटतंय आज नाही भेटत, उद्या मागास होती पेरणी, पुन्हा येत नाही, काही मागास झालं की. अशा अडचणी तर भरपूर आहे. शेतात करायचं म्हणल्यावर शेतकऱ्यालाच कळत आहे किती अडचणी. आता जे हातात आहे तेवढं तर करतंय माणूस अडचणी सोडवण्यासाठी, पण नाही सुटल्यावर काय ती.
So this is, she's a woman farmer from a drought-prone district in Maharashtra. She's a single woman. Her husband committed suicide. It was a farmer's suicide. And she's really young, as you can see. Of course, she's aged because of the stress and the kind of issues that she's facing right now. And I think she, very, very beautifully narrates her entire story, which in a way, in a nutshell, captures both climate change and its disastrous impact on her life. Of course, she's talking about the suicide and how now if she has to be rehabilitated as a farmer, take decisions, the kind of challenges she faces, both in terms of what society has to offer to her, but also in terms of the climate events that make her farming experience extremely uncertain. So this is a story of several women farmers who are really uh, uh, part of Maharashtra's landscape in a way, particularly the drought-prone and farmer suicide districts of the state. But Maharashtra is not the only state. Many of the southern states, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, and also Punjab, where we are seeing a large number of suicides and single women who have to struggle. So this is not just about, although she speaks so eloquently about mental health also, the stress that she faces. So just simply the multiple dimensions and the various layers of the kind of impacts that she has to face. A similar story is from migrant labor. This is again the case of Maharashtra, where there are large numbers, close to 8 to 10 lakhs, who migrate every year to different parts of Maharashtra or even outside of Maharashtra just so they can survive. Distress migration has increased over the years, and the answers that you will hear from many of these women who are part of the families that migrate is because livelihood opportunities in their own villages have actually shrunk. So young girls, children are also accompanying them, and questions of security and livelihoods are very central to this. Uh, this is, you'll see a picture. This is some of the areas that we are working in, and you'll see a large number of young women between the ages of 12 and 25 who are also there along with their mothers, who are assisting, in this activity, with huge impacts on their own health, and of course, the fact that they have lost out on education. Gynecological morbidity is something which has been observed among sugarcane cutters. Many of you may have heard about the hysterectomies that were documented among the women sugarcane cutters at young ages of, anything between 30 to 35, where it's not only a health issue, but I think there are several mental and other health issues that are also noticed as a result of that. Now, this is Sumantai Ohar. Again, I would like to show you this short video because her story also captures not just the distress that migration causes, but how it, the entire organization of work of sugarcane cutting has economic, cultural, and social dimensions. So we listen to Sumantai Ohar.
राहणार पाटोळा तालुका जिल्हा बीड. 12 वर्षातच माझ्या आईचं पण लग्न झालंय ना. माझं पण लग्न 13-14 वर्षात लग्न झालं माझं बी. आणि त्याच्यानंतर मला 4 मुली आणि 1 मुलगा. मग मी माझ्या मुलीचं पण लग्न त्याच पद्धतीत केलंय की कसं 15-16 वर्षातच लग्न सगळ्याचे करून दिले. आणि अजून बी कारखाना चालूच आहे. माझ्या मुली पण कारखानाच करतात. सांभाळायची जबाबदारी. लोक म्हणतात की हे लग्न कमी वयात लग्न कसे केले, पण सांभाळायची जबाबदारी. आम्ही कारखान्याला जात होतो, मग ठेवायच्या कुठं मुली. त्याच्यामुळे दिले पटापटा लग्न करून 15-16 वर्षाला. ह्याच्यामुळं सारखं कारखाना चालू आहे. मग ते बी कारखान्याला जातात. आता त्यांना बी मुलं आहेत, मुली आहेत. त्यांचं बी पुन्हा असंच होतंय का काय, आता तिसऱ्या पिढीवर जातंय का काय, आता काय सांगतो.
तुम्ही किती वर्ष कारखाना केला?
आजपर्यंत केला लग्न झाल्यापासून.
लग्न किती वर्ष झालं?
लग्न झालं असं 14-15. माझं नाव.
So Sumantai's story is about, the sugarcane cutters who are married at the early age of 13, 14. And this is not a response from a 60-year-old who's saying that I was married at the age of 14 or 15, but many among whom we work with who are just 20 or 25 said that they were married at the age of 14 or 15. So I think these are, issues of both, how the work is organized and how an economic unit that needs to be formed early enough actually forces or compels early marriages. So child marriages are rampant. And as you can see, this has long-standing impacts on their lives, but more specifically on their health. And Sumantai is, she's really sort of appealing and hoping that this does not continue beyond the third generation. So she's, there's a whole story that she talks about how generations after generations they have to engage in this kind of work. But she also talks about how this distress has in fact increased over the last few years, where drought events in her district have increased. And I think this has a lot to do with the kind of policies, programs, and the changing climate has been, the kind of havoc that it has been wrecking in these areas. So now, what are the impacts on rural girls? I think we've discussed them, but to specifically talk about, increased responsibilities at the household level, which means that, school dropout rates are high. Water and sanitation services. It's interesting that, what I mentioned earlier, that despite our flagship programs, what we are witnessing in a state like Maharashtra is really surprising, but of course not completely unexpected, where we are seeing that basic access to water and sanitation services is not what has been projected through our data. So there are concerns about that, and that has meant that there is an increased burden on women and young girls. Of course, in some contexts, risks are also associated with the fact that there is gender-based violence. Child marriages is what we've already seen. And of course, the economic insecurity, which we saw in the context of both farm suicides as well as distress migration. But what is also another area of concern, and where agriculture scientists are also emphasizing, is the loss of diversity of food, but also the production or the yields, productivity of certain crops, food crops, has actually been going down. But what we've also sort of been witnessing over the last several decades is the shift in cropping patterns and our move to monocropping, where we have actually lost out on food crops. So in absolute terms, the area under food cultivation has in fact gone down. So you have, monocrops, which are largely commercial crops, like whether it's sugarcane, cotton, soya bean, which are actually dominating our fields, and which also means that there is food insecurity. But this is again aggravated by climate events. And we heard the story from Marathwada, where she talks about how erratic rainfall or unexpected heavy rains are actually damaging crops. So this is in fact an important area that we need to be highlighting, which has a direct impact again on health. Now, let's speak about actions. I think there are actions at various levels. You have a lot of negotiation that is happening in the rich global north, where the capitalist nations are negotiating for carbon credits, but also how the status quo is maintained. But we have to be hopeful, and we can be hopeful because there are strong struggles, global actions. In India, we have the Adivasis who are fighting and really standing up against large scale projects, whether they are mining projects, industries that are coming up in forests and in environmentally rich areas, where not only are the forests being destroyed, but also the entire lives and livelihoods of people are being destroyed. So I think there are protests across the world that are warranting action and are looking for nations to really act very strongly. I think this is where we really need to, pay attention to, in terms of what is it that we as young people, or rather you as young people, I think I have moved to the other generation. So what is it that you as young people, along with us, and we are as accountable as all the young people are, in terms of what are the actions and where do we need to anchor our actions? I think, of course, we need to act at the micro, but we need to be mindful and have a bearing of the larger global issues as well. So I think we have to be very clear that climate action is not just about the mitigation or the smart initiatives that are suggested, but I think it is about really speaking against the regime that is, uh, actually basing itself on exploitation of resources and people. So while on the one hand, we have to question, the extractive policies and, the kind of programs that are being pushed forward, which are damaging our environments and health. But I think we also have to be very mindful of the fact that, yes, of course, environmental crisis and climate change is important, but we cannot ignore the gender, caste, religion, and other forms of discrimination and its intersection with the environment, which also needs to be attended to. So I think the environmental and what Nancy Fraser calls as the trans-environmental, I think both these issues need to be seen in their interlinkages, and actions need to be planned accordingly. So we are really talking about not just speaking of climate events and the change there, but what is the system change that we are looking for? And that's where we need to challenge patriarchy, caste on the one hand, but also the rapid extraction of natural resources and the commercialization of agriculture and overall the development paradigm that we are pursuing. But yes, of course, we need actions at the micro. As far as young girls are concerned, we need to ensure that there is protection. So protect, prepare, and prioritize. I think social security, because a large burden, as we saw, of unpaid work is actually taken on by women and young girls. We need to ask the state to provide for social security and economic security, access to basic amenities, including childcare, maternal benefits, are all important changes that we need to look for. We, of course, need to prepare by enhancing the skill base, but the skill base to really look at alternative forms of development, because it's not, enough or adequate, or rather, we should not be focusing on how skills can be enhanced to align with the existing capitalist paradigm, but what are the new skills that need to be enhanced in order to create new lives, and amplifying their voices to both protest but also to really build alternatives in a manner that challenges the mainstream paradigm. And prioritize, because we have seen that budgets are inadequate. In fact, they are not even diverted to women, and particularly social security and economic protection. So budgets need to be allocated and reallocated, resource allocations, and of course, young girls need to be in decision making. And of course, I'll leave you with the last few slides where in the rural context, some of the efforts that women farmers from farm suicide districts and sugarcane harvesting areas are trying are about, moving to climate resilient agriculture. So not just about adaptation, but really resilience and mitigation are the words. And there is diversity where you value diversity of knowledge as well, because it's not monolithic, technocentric kind of knowledge, but the diversity that needs to be captured, and women's knowledge, particularly in seed and the diverse practices needs to be valued. So these are our women from sugarcane areas and suicide affected areas where they have looked for an alternative, and are now speaking of, making a transition from the commercially driven agriculture, chemical intensive agriculture, to a more diverse food and nutrition security based agriculture. So thank you. Yeah. I'm happy to take on questions if there are.
Thank you so much, ma'am. On behalf of everyone present here, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your valuable discussion. I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti ma'am for her remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Seema Kulkarni, for, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Seema Kulkarni, for giving such a vivid profile of intersectional vulnerabilities and so many complex dimensions of climate justice and climate change that you made it very easy with providing many examples from different parts of the country and work of Makam, which is very, very important. And 4 important points which I gather from your lecture is that climate justice begins with recognizing that it will impact rich and poor, young and old, man, women, children, and other genders differentially and often unfairly through those who are from the underserved areas. Second one is that framing the climate crisis as a social, economic, cultural, political movement for justice, which is very important. And your last slides, which showed that what is all is happening in all in different parts of the world over last 22 years, 24 years rather, because the report came out in 2000 by the UNFPA. And also the gender dimension is now very articulated by the environmental movement. And it's a recognition that those causing climate change, that means large corporations, industries, affluent people, consumerist lifestyle, non-green consumption behaviors, and those suffering from disastrous impact of climate change are entirely different groups separated by caste, class, ethnicity, and race. The disadvantaged groups, they suffer the most, and therefore those least responsible for climate change suffer the gravest consequences in terms of loss of livelihood, loss of food security, distressed migration, reproductive health challenges, and also mental health issues. So with increased anthropogenic activity on the environment, it is very necessary for us to intervene as citizens, as planners and policymakers, and as young people who want transformative change. Then I think we all have to tighten our belt, and we'll have to work together and understand the interconnections. That is, I think, very important thing which you brought in. Interconnections between the rural and urban reality, interconnections between consumerist lifestyle and the human miseries. And the challenge to monolithic and technocratic knowledge is so important. And respect for women's collective wisdom, I think that is a very important learning that has come out from your presentation. Thank you. It was extremely enlightening and insightful.
Thank you, ma'am. In interest of time, we will have the Q&A session at the end of the program. So we will move on to the next session, and it is my honor to call upon Ms. Anjali Bawa ji to deliver a session on entrepreneurial journey, navigating challenges and opportunities for young women. Welcome, ma'am, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Impact and Policy Research Institute, for inviting me to do the session. It will be my honor, and I hope the next 30 minutes we engage in a very enriching session. Starting the session, a very warm welcome to all the aspiring women entrepreneurs. Today, we will be deep diving into entrepreneurship challenges, opportunities available to us to bring out the best in our careers. But before I do that, and as I present my screen, I would like all the attendees to put a comment in the chat box saying yes, if you are an entrepreneur or aspire to be. Let's see how active and charged up you all are. I'm waiting for all of your comments. Put down your comment. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Okay, I'm looking at few of the comments. I've just gotten 2 comments. Come on, everyone. Anisha, Ria, Sunidhi, a big, big yes. Great. I hope my screen is available. You all can see my screen?
Yes. Please go
Great.
full screen mode. Yeah.
Yeah, just a second. I'm also trying to make it full screen over here. Just can anyone help me out, like how to do this in the full screen in this one?
You can bottom right, you can see the zoom sign, plus minus. Just below your name. Just below your name.
Below my name, this one?
Yeah.
But I'm not able to click on it. Wait.
Yeah, just below that.
Okay, wait, let me just make the screen size a bit smaller.
You can see the zoom just left to that.
This one, slide control?
No.
Or I'm so sorry.
You can go to home, insert, draw, left top.
Okay, wait, I think I got it. Now you all can see it, right?
Right.
Great. So sorry. Telling you about the entrepreneurial journey and suffering from a technological challenge, but it happens with all of us. Great. So before we get into that, I've got everyone's yeses. So that means I am pumped up and you all are also pumped up to know about how to go about the entrepreneurial journey, right? So tell me, before I set up a base also, let me also introduce myself. So I am Anjali Bawa, as you all know, founder of YWLPPF Experts, an expert network community where we help businesses connect with the industry experts across categories for consultation, on demand, advisory, and mentorship. I am also enlisted with Startup India Marg Initiative as a mentor. I independently work as operation and business analyst. For my work and contributions, I have been rewarded by Indian Achievers Club as 30 under 30 and Digital Women by Google in 2021 and She the People. With this, I think you all can trust me that I will be able to take this session. So we all are now pumped up. So let's see, who is an entrepreneur, right? I've been talking about an entrepreneur, but who is it? We all know a very simple definition that an entrepreneur is an individual who creates a new business, bears most of the risk, and enjoys most of the rewards. Let's focus on an individual. Is entrepreneur is really an individual? Is it really equal opportunity for both men and women? Is the world really ready for young entrepreneurs? Now we are talking about not only young, but we are also talking about young and women entrepreneurs. The answer is actually pretty much no. Because you know why? Because the world will not only become a better place, because if women start working better and start taking leadership table, they will be overshadowed. And young people is not always a good opportunity for the traditional mindset, right? Because they are always questioning the status quo. They bring the fresh perspective. They are purpose driven, and they're not only in for cash, but are also willing to make the world a better place. So young and women, that's a double threat. And that is why there will be challenges, and there will be major challenges that will be faced by women entrepreneurs. But we will be talking today about the major 4 challenges that are commonly found when women go for entrepreneurship, starting with gender bias and stereotypes. Imagine you are a young woman, which you are, with a groundbreaking idea, ready to take on the entrepreneurial world. But as you step into the boardroom or pitch your idea, you encounter many raised eyebrows or dismissive attitude because of your gender. Unfortunately, that is the reality for many aspiring female entrepreneurs. Gender biases and stereotypes are real, and they create significant barriers affecting everything from funding to garnering respect in the industry. With that, we move on to our second part, which is, sorry, I feel like today the technology is not on my side. Wait, wait a second, there's some lag on my side. Just a second. Okay, just play from the beginning. Okay. The screen has blanked out somehow. I don't know why. Okay. I feel like I can go on, but the presentation is not helping me out. Wait, just a second. Bit of a slow, but okay, we are right there. The second major problem that we find is lack of access to funding and resources. About 28% of the tech professionals are women, and out of which only 14% receive funding and only 1% are actually able to secure funding in the global ecosystem. Now, this is a mind-boggling. Now, another staggering figure is that women-owned businesses generate about 8 to 10% more revenue than male counterpart in the same age and same industries. But still, only 5% of the women-owned businesses receive venture capitalist funding as compared to, listen to this, 77% of male-owned business. That means securing funding is the often biggest hurdle for entrepreneurs, but for women it is even more challenging. But we all know that is not the case, that women are not as competent as men. Clearly they are more competent, But this lack of funding can create a big hurdle when it comes to growing and expanding your business, and can definitely stifle your growth and innovation. Moving on to our third challenge is the work-life balance. Balancing the demands of entrepreneurship with personal responsibilities can feel like an uphill battle, especially for women who may be juggling with both family obligations and caregiving duties. The pressure to excel in both realms can lead to a burnout and feeling of guilt. And we all know that we go through the crisis of guilt when it comes to women. Last challenge, of course, out of many more challenges, but the last challenge that we will be covering today is lack of mentorship and networking opportunities. Having a mentor can be invaluable for navigating in complexities of entrepreneurship, yet many young women find it very difficult to navigate through this without guidance from experienced professionals. Can cause a huge problem, because you will be feeling like that you're navigating an uncharted territories. Similarly, limited access to networking events and industry experts can also hurdle your growth. Whereas we have started to see a lot of this happening in major tier 1 cities, but tier 2 and tier 3 cities are still suffering from this a lot. They need to have a much better developed ecosystem for networking. So, and on top of it, in fact, if you do go to networking events, you will not see as number of women as many as men in that room, which makes it even more difficult to start a conversation. So I'm sure we have either faced this challenge or we have known about them. But the real question is, how do we navigate through these challenges? So we will take it step by step. The first challenge was gender stereotypes. So how you can tackle this problem is through visibility and representation. You can do this by building a personal brand. You can speak on the platforms where you can, whichever you use social media very, very actively. It is a very, very powerful tool, especially LinkedIn, where you can talk about your story, about the people you know, about the women who are breaking stereotypes, and about your work. People listen to it here a lot. Only then you will be able to break those ceilings and shift those stereotypes. Upskill yourself. Take inspiration from the women around you. With the latest advancements available like AI and extensive knowledge material, use that to your advantage. Read as many books as you can, because when you do so, that makes you a thought leader in your industry. And that itself gives you a leverage over others. And that will help you overcome those gender stereotypes. With that, we move on to the next part, which is the lack of access to funding and resources. To address the challenge of staggering numbers, it is crucial to actively seek out funding opportunities which are tailored to women entrepreneurs. This includes government grants, Startup India initiatives, female-backed VCs, angel investors, and many VCs who just focus on women entrepreneurs, incubators, and accelerators. Also try to network with women who have been able to secure funds. This will further enhance your opportunity and understanding how to raise funds and get those resources. There are unlimited resources. I would like to speak out few resources. If you want, you can write it down right now, or you can even Google it up later. They are pretty much available. All you have to do is actively seek out their application dates and apply for it. Some of them, like the government grant, which are very, very popular, are Mudra Yojana, Startup India grants, Mahila Coir Yojana, Udyam Shakti Portal, Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Program, various opportunities that have been generated through Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship that you can take it up. There are some VCs, very popular VCs, who specially give a lot of emphasis to female-backed businesses, or where at least one of the co-founders is female, such as Stronger Ventures, Kalari Capital, She the Capital, NQB Angels, AWE Fund, Saha Capital. You can look it up. You can apply for their applications. Even if you don't get selected, they give you a very interesting feedbacks which can help you, work on your business better and then apply accordingly. There are many more funds and angel investors which are coming up now who want to help out women All you need to do is network and seek for it, and you will be able to get a lot of chance, because there is a lot of initiatives that are being done to bridge this gap. All you have to do is now get on it and execute it. So very, very important to keep yourself updated, upskilled, and know about these resources that are available to you. With that, we move on to the work-life balance problem. Now, one approach to achieving work-life balance is through effective time management and prioritization. Setting boundaries and learning to delegate tasks can help women entrepreneurs avoid spreading themselves too thin. It is also important to know that self-care is not selfish. Taking time for relaxation is essential for long-term success. There are top 5 ways to do that, which I also do, and I encourage a lot of women around me to do so. Number 1 is set boundaries. One of the most important things that you can do for your work-life balance is to set boundaries and learn to delegate tasks that can help you avoid spreading again yourself too thin. It is also important when you are setting boundaries, you also respect it and you also let others know. It doesn't come across as rude when you respect it yourself. Number 2, make time for yourself. As I said, it is not selfish to take out time for yourself. Respect yourself, know what are your boundaries, know what is your time to do, and others will just follow. It will be a challenge in the beginning, but when you regularly start following your timetable, others will also know when you are available for work and when you are not. Prioritize your health. It is so important for women to prioritize your physical as well as your mental health when it becoming an entrepreneur, because there are so many things to do, and it is very important that you do take out time to eat healthy, exercise, do time management, take enough breaks in between so that it doesn't take a toll on you. Because if you are not healthy and if you are not fine, you can never become a good leader and others cannot follow you. And that is why it is very important to prioritize your health. Number 4, delegate and outsource. There are many experts and mentors out there, which I told you, but don't become me, and I'll do it everything by myself. It is not a great thing to do. Ask for help when needed. Outsource tasks that can be done without your help. It will save so much of your time and it will help you focus on the major tasks and responsibilities, and that will create an amazing work-life balance for you. Last but not the least, and one of my favorite points is learn to say no. Know your value, know your principles, and abide by it. Remember, you will be paid and respected to say no more than to say yes to all. So with that, 5 major pointers I hope you all have noted down for tackling work-life balance. Simple to say though, but very, very hard to do. And discipline is at the core of this. Then we come to tackling mentorship and networking. One solution is to actively seek out mentorship programs specifically designed for women entrepreneurs. These programs are meant with experienced mentors who can provide guidance, advice, and support. Additionally, joining women-focused networking groups can even help you expand your professional circle and can also help you forge valuable connections around it. And some of the major examples that I have seen are doing a great job are Leap Club, Aspire for Her, MentorX, Kulkarni, WEN Women in Entrepreneur Network, and MentorX. There are many, many more, but these are some of my favorite mentorship and networking groups. She the People also is one of the greatest part, where essentially you will get to network, be a part of a safe circle. You can ask as many queries and you will find women backing up women, and there is nothing better than that. In summary, while all of these challenges may seem very daunting, they are not insurmountable. By raising awareness and advocating for change and supporting one another, we can create a more inclusive and supportive environment for young women entrepreneurs to thrive. Remember, every obstacle presents an opportunity for growth and innovation. So let's embrace these challenges as each challenge becomes a stepping stone for a path to success. It is great time to be a part of the business ecosystem. Not only why, because there are many great opportunities and platforms available for women entrepreneurs to network, grow, learn, and see, but there is so much inspiration that we can find around us. And I'm not just saying that for the sake of it. You can see a lot of women right now in front of you on your screen that have done it all. They are one of the biggest examples of great Indian ecosystem establishing that women can do it all. They can have a seat on the table. They can lead with great power and make unicorns of the world. Some of the greatest examples, I don't know how many of you will be able to recognize out of this. I hope you are able to recognize everyone. But there is Mabel Chako, there is Radhika Gai Agarwal, there is Priyanka Gill, Ghazal Alag, Vinita Singh, Namita Thapar, Supriya Paul, and Soumya Singh Rathore, and many, many more. I hope if ever you feel like that, I am not enough, Google them up, check out their stories, and take inspiration from these women who made it happen despite so many challenges. And that is when you will know that it is time for us, where there was a time when we were not even allowed to have a financial income, where we were not even allowed to work. But today we are talking about entrepreneurship. Today we are talking about taking the seat on our table. We are talking about leading from the front. If they can do it, I can do it, so can you. Go with this thought. And with that, I would like to actually conclude with one of my favorite quotes, again by a woman entrepreneur, is that being an entrepreneur is a mindset. You have to see things as opportunities all the time. This is by Soul Dad O'Brien, who is one of the most powerful CEOs of the world. And Google her up, know her story. She, from a journalist, how she became an entrepreneur and CEO of one of the biggest multimedia production house. But what she says is so important, that it is the mindset that makes a lot of change and not otherwise. So I hope you're all ready to take on that challenge. And on that note, just take the leap of faith, and it is your time now, and get started on your entrepreneurial journey. Thank you so much. This was my small bit in helping you out, understanding the challenges of entrepreneurship as a women entrepreneur, as well as how you can navigate through these challenges. There is a lot more resources and courses available. One of the biggest great inspiration is that you're part of IMPRI now, who is helping you take care of this. And if you have any questions for me, I'm very, very happy to take on that. And if you liked any bit of this session, do let me know. You can connect with me on LinkedIn with a note, and or you can write about this session, whatever you liked about it, on LinkedIn, tag me and IMPRI. I'm also available to take a call on TalkMate. You can just Google me, Anjali Bawa, and I'll be happy to connect with you one-on-one and help you navigate through these challenges if I can, or if I can connect you with some other mentors. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you liked the session today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Your expertise and invaluable insights have provided us with a deeper understanding of all the opportunities as well as challenges within this field, and your guidance on navigating the complexities of career advancement has been incredibly empowering. Thank you. I would
Yeah.
like to invite Professor Vibhuti ma'am for her remarks.
Also, I have a question. I think I got a question. I just saw that. Do you want me to address it right now?
You may, yes.
Okay. Okay, so the question is, how can one confidently find out a niche for starting the startup journeys? As everyone is talking about startups, it feels like every service or every product is already out there. How can I find my idea? Okay. Thank you so much, Anisha, for asking this question. First of all, it is not about finding a niche and then becoming an entrepreneur. You can also become an entrepreneur in your career as a professional, where you're working, where you can be enterprising, where you can lead things from the front. And if you are genuinely looking to become an entrepreneur, it's not about finding a new business. First of all, not all products and services are out there. If there were, we would have all become super humans. There are a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems in tier 2, tier 3, in agriculture, climate, sustainability, and there are a lot of problems if you look around. And if you are able to find something out of that and you can make an impact, you are an entrepreneur, right? Every time it's not only about building something which will going to make me hefty profits. For that, you can also build a business which already exists. You can also get into a traditional business. But if you're looking for a niche, that can be a longer question answered, where we can sit down. Also, if you want, we can connect and we can try to understand what are you good at, what is something that you like, what are you passionate about, and you can generate a business around it. It is not like all the kind of startups are out there. Look around, sit down one day and look around. There are so many problems, and if you can solve for that, or if you are even passionate about solving for it, you can make a business out of it. I hope I answered your question. If there is a follow-up, I'm happy to take that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you did answer it actually. Like what you said definitely makes sense. And I would like to, I would take my time to find out more about what exactly am I wishing to do and like how can I go on further about it. Thank you so much.
Definitely, Anisha. And if you need more help through IMPRI or otherwise, via LinkedIn, you can reach out to me directly and we can have a detailed discussion also.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank you so much.
Now I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti for her remarks. Professor Vibhuti, your remarks. I'm sorry, ma'am. you're on mute.
Aren't there questions? Because today people are quieter, it seems. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, we have very, very engaging discussions and very lively discussions. And all. Today, I don't know. They are. So I think my response to Ms. Anisha Koshi's presentation is that it is very important that first you also showed that the kind of difficulties women business owners or enterprise developers are facing because they don't get social support and to kickstart their businesses. In fact, only 8% of all enterprises are owned by women, and their capacity to invest, if you see, it's mostly from 50,000 rupees to 5 lakhs rupees, and which they raise by either selling their gold or borrowing from husband or friends or neighbors or ex-colleagues when they give up their jobs. So main thing is of the financial institution. Why don't they consider women entrepreneurs as bankable? Nationalized banks and cooperative banks and other private financial institutions. I think that also is guided by gender stereotypes. In fact, the study on startup also shows, and I think your data is also quite revealing. So, and also the question of lack of mentorship from the business community is also one of the major challenges which are faced by women entrepreneurs. A student of mine who did a study of women who are into food production industry, and they also said that because they were not getting chance anywhere else. So it was not a sign of optimism, but it was a sign of helplessness because they were not getting opportunity anywhere else. Despite being very qualified, they had to start the business of at least providing lunch boxes or selling masalas or pickles or papads and all. So I think we also see that there is no institutional support, because even when the same story is heard when we talk about Stand Up India, Startup India, Make in India, even changing the mindset of bureaucrats and also the politicians is also very important. And I think the most important affirmative action I see is a quota, that whatever government fundings that we are giving for enterprise development to MSMEs or under Atmanirbhar Yojana or self-employment schemes and all, minimum 30% targeting of women entrepreneurs has to be there. The way we have for NREGA or any anti-poverty program, I think the same should apply for the enterprise development this thing. You also gave us success stories of how women are making inroads in the men's world, despite seeing so many sticky floors and so many glass ceilings which they have to encounter while building their business. But these success stories, I think they can be the role model. But at the same time, macro structures have to be far more congenial, and they have to be more oriented towards support to women entrepreneurs, because their bankability, in fact, wherever, whether you see Mandesh Mahila Sahkari Mandali or Annapurna or Seva, everywhere you have seen women are far more honest and sincere, even when they take loan or when they are supported, they give back the returns. And I think your data also shows that the success rate and also the viability, economic viability rate is also very high, where though the proportionately they are less, but their success rate is higher. And the same thing in politics also, though most of the political parties don't give them candidature, but whenever they are fighting election, I think their success rate is higher, and even their performance appraisal also shows they are far more conscientious and ethical in their conduct. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vibhuti ji. It means so much that, for adding on to it. I feel like I think there are more questions. I see one more question from Nikita. I was just writing it down for you on the chat only. There are many incubators which are promoting social entrepreneurship. You should definitely look that up. And there are many government grants that are being given state-wise as well. Right, so you can look into that also, that are being provided. Definitely enlist your business under Startup India initiative. I am one of the mentors on the MARG initiative, which is for the mentorship, but Startup India initiative itself provides a lot of grants, and I'm happy to share that list with the IMPRI, or you can also Google it up. It's not very difficult to find. Just put out like grants available for social entrepreneurship. And if you feel like there is an expert that you need that can help you get those grants, definitely check it up on LinkedIn and post it out that, there are some middlemen as well who are helping you out. But I would say that directly apply for these grants. There are a lot of opportunities that if your business is viable, and in certain areas, depending on what kind of social entrepreneurship that you're into and what kind of impact that you're bringing, there are more chances that you will get government grants. So check for that. And government itself helps you incubate into these institutions where you get free mentorship also. And that is something I don't think you should miss. So I hope I answered your question, Nikita.
Hi, Anjali. Thank you. Yes, I am aware of a lot of this, but my challenge, and I think maybe I didn't frame the question correctly, is that if you see the contrast in the different sessions we've had, right? I think it's beautiful to have this entrepreneurial, zeal among women, but sometimes when it comes to the social lens, it's not very easy for, like ma'am said, for funders or people coming from a regular capitalistic view, or from a view of productivity, to really see the benefit in some projects. So it gets a bit tricky, and I feel like that's where, if there are like-minded support systems. So I already know many of them, right? Unlimited India, many of them that do social that do incubate programs, or entrepreneurs that are really looking to make that larger impact. But I was trying to say, and maybe it's a question for IMPRI also to look at, if there are good incubators that are doing it with that mindset of alternative development, then that would be wonderful. I'd definitely be interested in exploring or, having those conversations with people like that, because sometimes for a lot of the subtle aspects, it's a little difficult to have all of it, down on paper. But yeah, I definitely appreciate both skills, and I think both of them are required, and I think they need to come together more. And I think the mainstream does need to probably hear a lot of the real on ground challenges, like we heard in the previous two sessions. So my startup is actually trying to marry the two, and that's where I am struggling a bit. But yeah, I'm sure as things unfold, I will get the right ecosystem and the right support.
No, you would definitely, Nikita. That's what I was trying to say, that uh, uh, to understand clearly, you are into social entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, I just in the interest of everyone's time, I will definitely take the conversation offline with you, and I'll definitely hear
Yeah,
your comments. I'll definitely
definitely.
shoot out a
Because I
LinkedIn to
feel
you.
like there are
Sure.
a lot of people who are helping out this. Private VCs will not be your answer, because they are just here for their returns. They will not be looking at social entrepreneurship and that level. So maybe your approach in there are a lot of opportunities available, and there are a lot of groups who are also coming together to
That
help
would be
women
wonderful.
and who are working social
Yeah,
entrepreneurship.
that would be
Get
wonderful
in
to
touch
also
with me.
understand what is the best
Yeah,
type of incorporation, in terms of the different
for
forms,
your
etc.
business.
So
Yeah.
definitely, I'll definitely connect. Thank you so much. I had one
Thank
more
you.
question, Vibhuti ma'am, if I can just take that up
Yeah.
in connection. I just, it was nice to hear the on-ground stories from Maharashtra, and because I work in Gujarat, I had some questions about what is the role in the future generation when we're talking about, really rural communities. And we all know that climate change is going to disproportionately impact, a lot of our agriculture community, or quote unquote rural areas. What do you feel there is a critical role, because our education system is not contextual? So do you feel there's a critical role in terms of really empowering young women and girls? Because I work with tribal youth, and I can see that disconnect is so large, where their role in the larger development dynamics is not adequately understood by them, nor is it, while their voice is emerging, I'm not saying it's not, but it's not emerging with the kind of information that it should emerge with, right? We're not looking at communicating the value of their traditional knowledge systems to them. So I was wondering if Ms. Seema Kulkarni had any thoughts about the role of education in the kind of work you're doing.
Absolutely. I think the answer very much is yes, Nikita. But what kind of education? I think those are the kind of questions that we need to ask. And they have to align with the realities. This is not to say that, you have to align with the realities, which also can be understood as, young girls have aspirations, which may well not align with the ground realities. So I certainly take that into recognition. But nonetheless, I think you have to start from where they are and help them build their aspirations. And that is exactly what we are seeing in rural Maharashtra. But as you said, you're working in Gujarat, and the story may be very much similar. Uh, I mean, a lot of examples, but to really very briefly answer this question is how, an effort that we are trying to make is also uh, to have very strong and robust recommendations to programs like the Skill India program or Gramin Kaushal Vikas. Huge money in that, but unfortunately, all of those programs are somehow imagining the employment sector to be an organized sector where this is the untapped workforce which is going to simply flow into that organized sector, not recognizing the fact that there is 90% of people who are in the informal unorganized sector and who probably are looking for very different kinds of skill sets and supports. And that is where we are seeing a huge gap which needs to be bridged. I'm not saying that all that is Skill India is not worth it, but certainly there is a huge gap that needs to be bridged. Uh, one example is, the work that we are trying to do with even young women farmers. These are all in the age group of 20 to 35, young widows or, in distress areas where agriculture is their mainstay. But why are they aspiring not to be in agriculture? Because it simply lacks the kind of support that they would look for. So your policies and programs have to really be designed in a manner that they receive a solid support to actually re-establish their resources, both starting from entitlements to these resources, but also what can be done in the agriculture and allied space. And there's huge potential for entrepreneurship there. And I think there are young girls, unfortunately, they're just moving towards beauty parlors and becoming clerical staff for, the MSCITs and all the computer relate, which is a skill to be taken. I'm not against that. But I think this is where their knowledge and wisdom lies. And these are the spaces that really need to also have the dignity and esteem, right? Because everything that agriculture, oh, it's for the poor, it's for those who don't find non-farm and non-agriculture income. So I think it's a reimagining of how we understand entrepreneurship also. And there's huge potential for that, I can assure you. Young girls who simply haven't had the opportunity are unfortunately just going as, wage laborers. And if you speak to them, we've had excellent photo elicitation discussions with these young women. We just showed them these photographs of, you're harvesting sugarcane or you're working in a forest. And they were like, I have other dreams, but I also have dreams that link with the natural resources around me. So I think this is what really needs to be taken up very, very seriously. There's huge potential. And I think there is a dearth of thinking and imagination on the part of, unfortunately, many of us. I also take the blame for that. So both civil society and the state really need to come together and develop new ideas of entrepreneurship. Even Narega can be deployed in a very different way to actually, look at new answers. Yeah, thanks for that
I would
question.
like to add to Dr. Seema Kulkarni, because when Seema had informed us that at TISS that they were coming, all these women from rural areas, especially led by widows of the farmer. I don't like that term because
I
they're
know.
farmers. When they were having long march to Mumbai, we gave assignment to our students to do a profile of each woman. And it was such a transformative process which all students underwent, talking to them for 5 hours when they were in Dharna. And that gave them, they completely changed their mindset. In fact, in the placement, those who wanted to join World Bank and all the international CSR and all, they said no, they would work for rural India. So I think we teachers can play a very important role. When I was in a school, it was like Gandhian influence was very strong. So we were taken to model farm, though we were it was a school by the corporate, but they had a model farm. It was a chemical industry. And that changed our way of looking at rural areas. Otherwise, that consumerist mentality we have, that whatever resources are there for us, they are only for consumption. The people don't matter. So I think that humanization of the urban children can be done right from the early childhood education. So, and I think national education policy talks about it. So I think we teachers training program and refresher courses, orientation program, faculty induction program, faculty improvement program. I think we should make a mandatory subject on this. So now so many things, gender sensitization, gender-based violence, or constitution, all of them have been integrated in the syllabi. So I think this can be done. So teachers can play a very important role.
Yeah. And one just last point, Vibhuti, if I may. I think there is a lot of exit and entry that happens in education also for women who are working. And I think that second chance is very important, how we really look at our education, because simply if you exit it because, you migrated for 6 months, how do you enter back into the education system? And how do you learn skills that, can actually help you evolve an alternative imagination? I think those are also important things that need to be part of our mainstream education. I'm not saying what civil society
Distance
groups are
question,
anyway.
distance education or open school. Yeah. It should be part.
Thank you so much. It's all music to my ears because my startup is actually based on some of these ideas. So it's been a wonderful session and I've got validation from both ends. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think there was somebody, Megha, who has a hand
she
raised
has.
for a long time.
Yeah. Megha, please unmute yourself. She should unmute and speak. There is something she has written in the chat box also.
Yeah, I think she said that she wanted to connect directly with me. I have given my link. So folks, you can connect with me directly there. My LinkedIn is also there and you can also book a time. There is another question by Shweta. If you don't mind, can I take that up?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speak.
But actually, I am searching to you on Google, but I'm unable to find. Kindly text your address so can I am able to find you.
I have given my booking call link. Unfortunately, I'm not as popular as Deepika Padukone, but you
Okay.
can look at my link there. So,
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
yeah.
Thank you.
Sunidhi
No
also
worries.
has a question. Sunidhi.
Yeah.
She's there. Yeah, she also has a question. Sunidhi Sampingi. Are you there, Sunidhi? Oh, we don't see her. Shweta, you can read her question. Yeah.
Yeah, I read her question. Considering the focus on societal impact and addressing pressing issues, do you believe social entrepreneurship can be as profitable as traditional business model in the long run? And if so, what are some key strategies or examples you have seen that demonstrate this viability? I definitely agree that social entrepreneurship does not mean, I think, as previously just mentioned, that cannot be scaled up or grown or can be made profitable. It can definitely become profitable. You need to imply some innovative business models. You need to understand the viability of it. You need to understand how new strategies that can implement, the kind of partners and collaborations that you bring it up, that also matters a lot. Everything in a business matters is how you are efficiently managing your costs, how are you strategizing it, how mindful you are, the kind of collaborators you're bringing up. All of this will definitely help even the social entrepreneurs to make their business profitable. Social entrepreneurship doesn't mean NGO. Okay. Social entrepreneurship means that you're doing something that can make an impact. One of the example that I can think of right now in Indian context is Araku coffee. Araku cafes were actually started with bringing some coffee beans locally and then to make an impact, and then they made a very, very important profitable business. I do not have a lot of details right now, but definitely check out their case study of I'll mention it in the chat also. One of the biggest examples for you to understand that how a social entrepreneur converted their business into a profitable venture. And there are many other examples such as well. This was one which was on top of my mind right now. And I'm sure Seema ji can also tell you better in this because she comes from that background that social entrepreneurship is not NGO. It can definitely become profitable.
Thank you so much.
Great. Is there any other question? I think I saw one more question, but I'm not able to find it here.
Q&A. Pallavi Berry, Sunidhi Simpinji, chat also.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah. Riya Yadav, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. Thank you for so much very insightful session. So I have a question to Miss Seema Kulkarni, ma'am. So I want to ask that ma'am has focused on the climate and the gender. So during my master's last year, I did a paper environment and gender, and I read that women know about how to do a farming or nature protection in terms of farming in a very sustainable manner. I have read some case studies of Uttarakhand, some Uttarakhand area. Yeah. So what kind of, please throw some light on this, that what kind of initiatives some government should take to address the sustainable farming and address the climate change issues, you know, uh, with the help of the women.
Thanks for that question. Uh, I think there are two, three things that one must remember when we sort of invoke the qualities of women in terms of sustainable farming. One is that, of course, women have certain knowledge, certain kinds of knowledge, which has traditionally and come through oral traditions and otherwise. But women also have this knowledge largely because of the work that they're expected to do. So I think we have to be very clear to not essentialize women. But yes, of course, women's knowledge in the area of seed conservation, for example, because for generations after generations, women have been expected to do certain kinds of roles. So what can the government do? Knowing that women are engaged in agriculture, as we know, all the official data points to more than 70% of the rural women workers are engaged in agriculture. So there is certainly need for support for women in agriculture, because the paradox today is that women are engaged in agriculture. So I think land entitlements, right to land is something which is extremely important. Right to other resources like water, credit, I think that already came up in the first presentation. So these are very important supports for women to be able to stand up and really ensure that it becomes both economically viable activity for them, but also that they are able to bring diverse food on the table. So, women's role in what we are calling as farming, which is based on agroecological principles, is very, very critical. But that also means that women should not be burdened with regeneration of the environment. We have these old stories, oh, women are the carers and nurturers, and therefore they take on all the burden. So, certainly not that way, but in the spirit of your question, which is really very important, I think the state has to respond first by ensuring that women have rights over resources. So it's about justice. It's about entitlements. The second is, of course, very strong budgetary allocations to ensure that women are supported in agroecological farming, because unfortunately presently, although there's a lot of talk about organic farming, natural farming, but if you look at really the budgetary allocations, large subsidies go to chemical and pesticide industries and seed corporations, and not really to the smaller farmers and women's collectives who are interested in engaging in organic and natural farming. So unfortunately, today the examples you cited from Uttarakhand or various other areas where men are out migrating and women are forced to manage their farms. So you can really see that it is under adverse conditions that they are managing these farms. So yes to natural farming, but very strong budgetary supports and entitlements are required. Today we do have certain schemes like the Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, which are talking about traditional practices. But really, for women to come to the forefront, you have to recognize them as farmers without entitlements, without recognition. So, therefore, much of the agricultural programs, the entire architecture of agriculture schemes and programs is around ownership to land. So if women have to be supported, it has to be irrespective of ownership to land, but to those who are engaged in agriculture. And this has to be through a variety of ways. Agriculture inputs have to be available because local improved varieties of seed are required for natural farming. Bio inputs, where, again, there can be entrepreneurship there because women's collectives can actually form these bio service centers. And the third important support is the credit support. All our work is indicating that women are borrowing from microfinance institutions and other money lenders at very high interest rates, 36 up to 36 to 48% interest rates. They're pawning their gold, they have gold, but it's never on their bodies. So they're constantly mortgaging or pawning it. So this is all because they don't have a collateral. So their labor is their only collateral, but no loans, institutional loans become available for agriculture to these women. So I think a reformulation of policies becomes very important for women in agriculture, where you need to at some level de-link with ownership to land if these kinds of supports are required. And of course, you can visit the Makam website, where a lot of position papers are available in terms of what kind of supports are required. I'll put that in the chat. Yeah. Thanks for that question. I hope I've answered partially. In the interest of time, it was really rushed.
Yeah, okay, thank you, ma'am.
So I have a question to Advocate Dr. Alberina Almeida. So, ma'am, in light of the ongoing debate surrounding affirmative action, and you have also mentioned this in your session, and how affirmative action and its efficacy in promoting gender equality is really a hot debate right now. So, my question is, how do we actually ensure that reservation policies for women, especially in the realm of public policy, truly empowers marginalized communities without sort of inadvertently perpetuating tokenism?
So that's exactly what I've been saying, that, there's always a way that those in power and with privilege do not no one wants to give up their power and privilege. And so every time it's about what shall we say, eternal vigilance, so to say, on these matters, and to constantly be monitoring whether it is tokenism or how is it playing out, which is why in my presentation I said that it's not just about having women, but it's also about whether the voices of women are heard, whether the voices of diverse sections of women are heard. And I think for this, it's necessary to do some kind of documentation of the nature of inclusion that is taking place in the name of reservations. This is again not to say that there should not be reservations, but to say that these reservations, one needs to see what is the effect, what is the consequence, of what is the how the reservations are playing out. And I mean, I often hear this also about like reservations in the panchayats and municipalities, and how the husbands are taking over their positions. This is also another common grievance or common articulation. But the point is that I would still say there is visibility in the process to women because there is reservations, but we also need to build in checks and balances to ensure that this kind of takeover doesn't happen, and find ways to safeguard this. So it can mean maybe who is the face, I mean, monitoring this, finding a way to implement and monitor this, enabling women to capacitating women to deal with the stuff they have to deal with in their positions, so that then they don't have to turn to their spouses, because there are not these enabling facilities to enable women to to build their capacities in the specific fields that they're they have gotten themselves involved in. Yeah.
If there are any more questions, we can.
So there were more questions, but I've answered all of them in the chat itself. I hope they all have received it. Otherwise, I'm happy to tell it here as well.
So I don't think there are any more questions. May I just confirm if my voice is audible?
Yeah, your voice is on.
I think someone has raised her hand. I see Riya Yadav, her hand raised.
She spoke, no? Riya Yadav spoke.
Okay.
I had questions, I think, from Pallavi and Sunidhi, which I didn't speak live, but I've answered them in the chat. I hope they got their answers.
Since there are no more questions, I request Professor Vibhuti for her closing remarks.
Yeah, I think today we had a very enlightening session because we saw the question of inclusion from the entry point of law and policy making in the agrarian sector and the climate change discourse and also enterprise development. And I think all three are extremely important to SDG 5, Goal 5 of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which talks about achieving gender equality and empower all women and girls by 2030. And here the question of elimination of all forms of discrimination against women as per CEDAW or elimination of discrimination, ensuring justice, eliminating harmful practices and gender stereotypes. That is also very important. Valuation of unpaid care, which and the domestic work, which has been discussed now, debated in a public domain, also in the political discourses globally as well as in our country, and also ensuring women's full and effective participation in all the decision-making bodies. Here, I would like to once put forward before you that the recent study of UNDP, which says that among all elected representatives in the urban and rural local self-government bodies, 46% women are taking independent decision. The same women 30 years back were called to be rubber stamp or a puppet in the hands of their husband. So things are changing. And as I think Dr. Seema Kulkarni also emphasized, that are we doing enough capacity building? It is so easy to dismiss somebody. It is so easy to laugh at somebody for their quote unquote inadequacy. But have we ever given opportunity? For the first time, women are getting opportunity to work in a public life. And the complexity of the governance, I think that for that they need support of professional support of the ecosystem, and also massive handholding that is required. So the another issue that emerged was about the climate change and how it has a devastating impact at multiple levels. And for that also we need the working with women. In fact, Maharashtra is the state which has come up with the climate change policy, seeing women as agents of change. So that policy was prepared by Terry, and now only it is more at a level of discussion and debate, but I think we need to create the mindset among the politicians and administration and governance structures so that more and more inclusion takes place. Another very important issue that emerged, not in the three presentations, but I think question of enabling technology is very important in the context of Stand Up India, Startup India, Make in India, enterprise development. And I think more and more opportunities and exposure to that, and the most important issue of gender responsive budgeting and the transformative financing. I think Dr. Seema Kulkarni also mentioned that, and it is both enabling environment as well as budgetary allocation, because you may make budgetary allocation, money is parked in the ministries and departments, but it doesn't reach the people. So that also should not happen. So I think capacity building and enabling environment are very important. We see recently in most of the MOUs by the international banking system, international funding organization, and even government to government level debates and discussions, they talk about GISC, gender equality and social inclusion policy, which is the concept that addresses improving access to livelihoods, assets, and all the services for all, including women, poor, and those who are excluded, historically excluded and marginalized communities. So I think state and non-state actors again will have to come together. And also it has to be backed, whatever work we are doing, it has to be backed by robust research. I think the success mantra, which we see in all three presentations, with Dr. Albertina's work in the legal activism and creatively using existing laws. That is very important. Dr. Seema Kulkarni and her organization, Makam's work in 18 states of India, is supported by robust ground level research, both quantitative and qualitative. You go through Makam website and you know how this kind of data you never get in the reports of Agriculture Commission or the Ministry of Agriculture. And same Anjali Bawa's work, which is happening both at an individual to individual capacity building, as well as also creating the evidence-based policies. I think both of them are equally important. I really learned a lot from all three presentations, and I'm sure the same would be the response of the participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With the chair's permission, we can go for vote of thanks.
Vote of thanks, yes, definitely. It's so nice to see all three resource person here till the end. So it's really very rewarding. Yeah.
So as we come to end of day 8 of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, an online National Winter School program, a 2-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship, I, Shweta Shankar, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Study Center. We are grateful to our experts for day 8, Advocate Dr. Alberina Almeida, Ms. Seema Kulkarni, and Ms. Anjali Bawa, for taking out their valuable time and giving us an opportunity to the participants to learn from this online certificate program. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. Readings for the session have been shared in your email, and a video of the session will be shared with you for learning. We look forward to welcoming you for our 9th session of this certificate course on 2nd March 2023 at 3 p.m. We are grateful if you're watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI, Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you, resource person.